Hey, YouTube Live and Instagram Live. How you doing? It's Gordon Miller here. All right, let's see here. Checking my connection. Okay. All right, got both going. We've got Instagram Live over here and YouTube Live over here. And thank you guys. I appreciate it. Let's see. Just making sure we're actually live here. Appears so. Oh, I've got 3 followers on Instagram already, or on YouTube. All right, so, hey, how you doing, Siddharth? Good to see you, man. All right, so what I'm going to do is I have my iPad here with the stuff that questions that people asked over on Instagram earlier. So I am going to go through the hang on a second. All right, there we go. Finally, Instagram Live working out. Hey, Instagram Live, Gordon Miller here. Folks on YouTube have been live for about a minute and a half. So anyway, it's all good. I put out a request letting everybody know that I was going to go live today. And so it went out on Instagram so that people on Instagram could put in their questions ahead of time. So that is awesome. It worked out pretty well, actually. So I got a bunch of stuff I can start with, so I thought I'd go ahead and start. First question is from one of my followers and on Instagram, and he says, "How do you move on when you fail at something, relationships, contracts, deals, or connections that you wanted to have?" Well, losing connections and losing deals and opportunities and stuff like that is just all part of the process. I mean, you can't win every deal. Nobody does. I never did. So you have to, just realize that it's part of the process. The whole idea is that you learn something from having attempted the opportunity or attempted the relationship or attempted anything, and use it as a learning experience. Make sure that you are intellectually honest about what happened. Why did you lose that relationship, or why did you lose that contract, or why did you lose that deal, or why did that person block you, or whatever. So there's lots of reasons why, it can. You really just have to do the sort of be intellectually honest about what it is that is really at the core of that, and why you might have lost it. So let's see. The next question is: there's a lack of a straight path for someone entering the workforce or market. Most people just give half-assed roadmap to success, which is just bullcrap. Would love to hear your advice on that. And that's really true. I mean, I have said a number of times that I really wish that there was a more obvious roadmap to success for people just entering the job force, or starting their own company or something like that. There really isn't. And it's because that I think it depends on what area you're in and what the complexities of that are. There are cultural and other economic issues, depending on what part of the world you're in and things like that. I think that it's a complex enough situation that it's difficult to have something that applies sort of generally to everybody. And I think that's part of the problem. I have some decent advice, I think, on, hey Charlie, how you doing? I have some decent advice on the videos that I have. I've been really blown away on YouTube. You guys are really amazing. I've been posting hour-long live sessions to add to content. I now have over 30 hours of content in the 130 videos because of the hours of content that I've added in the last week. Hour after hour, day after day of posting the live Q&A sessions. I had 20 hours of content before doing all the live stuff. Now there's almost 30 hours. And the response has been pretty amazing. But it's just really the amazing amount of stuff that you that I've seen in terms of just the mass amount of viewership. I mean, hundreds of thousands of minutes, that people are viewing the stuff. So it's great, and it's all free too. I don't have anything to sell you. I'm not monetizing it. You guys don't have to watch ads. I'm not making a single dime from any of the content. So it is what it is. So let's see. So I think the reason that I don't have a particular roadmap in answer to that question. And just for everybody on YouTube and Instagram, I will circle back through the comments and answer those questions when I get done with the stuff that I know people have asked ahead of time. So we'll get caught up, and I'll scroll through the stuff as we go through here. But unfortunately, there isn't much of a straight path, to follow for success. That varies, and it varies by conditions. I mean, there's a lot of ways to, be successful during this pandemic, and some people are learning those new mechanisms to be able to succeed. So it just really depends. So thank you, Charlie. I appreciate it. Believe me, I will sell a book at some point. I'm working on three of them, so I'm all that information will be out there at some point. I appreciate it. So questions for Q&A. Is it necessary that I should be passionate about my job, which I'm doing for a living? Well, so, I think that it's important to your mental sanity, and things like that. I think that that's important to make sure that you are happy. I mean, I think everybody wants to be happy. I think that Gary V did that for a while. I want to be happy. Don't you just want to be happy? And I think that was a great tagline. Thanks, Rowan. I appreciate it's whiskey night at your place. If you weren't like 9,000 miles away, it'd be great. So the or are you in British Columbia? So that only puts you like 4,000 miles away. So, but thanks. Enjoy the whiskey though. So I think it's important that you be passionate about what you're doing. I mean, if you're really not passionate about your job, I think you should quit. I mean, I think you should find something else to do that you're more passionate about. So, we will see. So, again, I'm answering the stuff off of Instagram that people left questions. People that follow me on Instagram can DM me questions ahead of time, so I have a chance to prepare some stuff. I'll circle back through the comments that are going by, and we'll get caught up with you guys here, in a little bit. So next question is, how do you deal with fear of failure? Well, I used to worry about failing. The problem is that really the best lessons that you're going to learn come from failing at something. And honestly, I think that I would have been more successful by now if I had taken the risks and made some mistakes early on, and allowed myself to fail more when I was in my 20s and 30s. And I've never been afraid of failure per se, but I've always tried to limit the potential for failure. Certain things have failed anyway, and you learn from that. But I think the real opportunity though is to realize that failure is part of the learning process. And if you don't push it hard enough to know where the breaking point is, to know where it's possible to fail, then you could never reach the kind of success that's really out there. And I think you get over your fear of failure by failing and realizing it's probably not the end of the world, and get up and keep going. It's not about how many times you fall down in this world. It's about how many times you get up. And so I think that's really the key. All right, next question. Tell us something about Steve Jobs, how smart he was, your experience with him, and what the things or skills he had. So, as some of you have seen, we had a lawsuit against Apple back in September of '97, where they were infringing on our trademark for G3, and well, at the time, we had filed for our company incorporation in '94. We had started the company in '93 and officially incorporated in 1994. We also filed for the trademark for G3, and we owned it in the area of computer hardware and internet and online and a bunch of other stuff. And so Apple violated that trademark, and of course, we sent them a cease and desist letter, and then we were working on filing suit, and after 14 straight quarters of losses, they finally were going to show a profit by using our trademark G3 for the new machines, and so we sued them for the $56.8 million that it was that they got in net profit that first quarter that the G3 machines were allowed. We knew what the brand value was and things like that. Ironically, so Steve, not that Steve was going to settle for like $10 million and didn't just wanted this to go away, and because it was they were 90 days from bankruptcy and things like that. And I said, okay, I'll take 10 million in cash. And he's like, no, because I need cash to save the company. We'll do 1 million shares of Apple stock at $10 a share. And I turned it down. And of course, nowadays, it's doubled or 4 times since then. And the calculation now, it used to be like 982 million is what the stock would have been worth. These days, it would have been worth over 1.6 billion. And so if I had just simply taken the offer, and sat on the stock and done nothing else my entire life, I'd be a billionaire. And Steve knew it, and Steve was a pain in the ass. You just ask anybody who worked for him. But I tell you what, Steve was an amazing guy, and so in order to minimize the damages, they went sort of balls to the wall in the opposite direction, where they made the big blue and white G3 machines that were the tower machines with the G3 logo on the side. And they announced the machines, and I got a call from the director of product development for the hardware division, and he's like, "Hey, Steve wanted me to give you a call. Did you see the release of the new machines?" And I'm like, well, "Yeah, what are you guys doing? My God, that's nuts." And so he goes, "Yeah, well, we're going to send you one. You can hang it on your fucking wall." And I was like, "Man, that's crazy. Come on, guys." And so when we started doing discovery for the lawsuit, Apple had spent $100 million in advertising with Chiat Day advertising the new G3 machines. And so you have to show that I'm damaged. And so Steve spent $100 million to keep from having to pay me 10. And so that's just the way Steve was. I love it. I mean, it's great. In terms of prevailing on the lawsuit, the whole idea is that there would have been no damages, so there would be no recovery. So it was hilarious. But Steve was a great guy. He was a pain in the ass to work for, but I understand, so am I. So I can't get too upset about all that. But all right, so a great Steve Jobs story. Anyway, I love the guy. I miss him, actually. I mean, he was a pain in the ass for a number of years, and I felt bad about the whole trademark thing. But I should have taken his deal. I had no idea that Ross Perot was financing the recovery of the company, and they needed every dollar to save the company. But once they got back on their feet, man, he just loved to fucking stick it to me. It was great. So anyway, should you consider at 20 years old to be able to start up by age 23? Could you please talk something about this? So I started my first company when I was 28, about a week from my 29th birthday. And the thing that for me was I wanted to start my first company before I was 30. I actually think you need to work for somebody else. I mean, you need to finish your degree if you're going to get a degree, or whatever your degrees are going to be. And then I think you need to work for 5 years for somebody else in whatever capacity, so that you learn what you're doing. And I think you need to start your company while you're in that process. So I don't necessarily recommend somebody start their company at 23, just because you will not have typically had the benefit of your degree as well as 5 additional years of experience. Typically, that would put you in the 21, 22 plus 5 years is like 26, 27 kind of time frame. So I think that's really probably ideal in terms of learning while you're working for somebody else. But so I don't necessarily think that's the best idea. But would I consider answering questions about relationships and navigating friendships and relationships? Yeah, sure. I have one of the titles that I'm playing with for one of my upcoming books, I have three books that I'm working on simultaneously. Right now, the one that I'm playing with, the title of is called "From the Boardroom to the Bedroom," and the whole point of the title is that if you don't have your personal relationships squared away, so basically, if you don't have it, all your shit straight in the bedroom, there is no way you're going to be successful in the boardroom. There's no way you can achieve financial success or anything else like that. So you absolutely have to have your relationship situation squared away in order to be able to get to where you need to be success wise. And I believe that 100%. I had said, people talked about the fact that I met my wife 22 years ago, been married for 21 years, and they're like, "Yo, you didn't sign a prenup?" I was like, "Man, I was broke when I met my wife. We were making about 300,000 a year and things like that, and we were doing all right, but." I didn't make my first million until after I was married. I didn't make my second million until we started having kids. So, I went from, 300,000 to 500,000 to 800,000 to 1.2 to 1.6 to 1.8 to 2.3 to 2.5 to 2.8 million, bam, 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 bam. When you're building your relationship and you're building, your family and stuff like that, man, it just is a huge motivator. And so it's great, but you definitely have to have the right friendships. You have to have some downtime and some, whether it's, hanging with the boys or whether it's, whatever. I'm lucky, my wife has been my best friend for the last 22 years. And, it's great when you're married to your best friend, and it works out great. It really does. And, the our compatibility scores and our Jordan Peterson 5 dimensions test is one of the key factors in our success. I've posted about that before, and it's available on my LinkedIn profile. Actually, I think I posted it. Oh, it's in one of my Quora answers today, and so it's on my blog for the Truth Unfiltered in Quora. But no, I mean, navigating successful relationships. I think the people that most of the time, the things that people do wrong is they stay in a relationship way too long, or they let toxic people stay in their lives. Man, toxic people are just gonna kill you. You need to get those people out of your life. You don't need that kind of aggravation. Oh my God. It's like, get rid of those people. All they do is drag you down. All they do is take time and energy away, things like that. So, hey mom, how you doing? My mom, follow me on Instagram. I love it. So, let's see. Um, let's see. I'd like to take on how to enter relationships without being too scared or hesitant to open up to new people. Well, okay. So, again, on the relationship side of things, the in terms of entering relationships and being too scared or hesitant, typically that's because a lot of people are willing to take advantage of whatever the friendship or relationship is, and so they don't mind hurting you to get whatever they want. And in most cases, most relationships are a give and take dynamic where most one person does most of the taking and the other person does most of the giving. And so or they both want to take and there's nothing to take, or sometimes you'll get people that'll give, but it's really about the reciprocal act of participating in the relationship. It's about that sort of yin and yang of the whole relationship dynamic. And so it's difficult to be in a relationship and not be fully present for the relationship. If people are too hesitant or too protective or things like that, then that can be all sorts of problems, and you don't necessarily need those kind of problems. But people that have gotten hurt before, people are afraid of getting hurt again, and I completely understand that. And so, but so one of the things that I've tried to do, and I've been screwed over by a few of my business partners and things like that. I had one of my partners embezzle like $800,000 from one of our companies. I end of our 3-year contract. He got his 800 grand out, and my 800,000 was supposed to still be in the company. And he used my $800,000 to buy 8 rental properties at $100,000 a piece, and create an income stream for himself. And unfortunately, it's under $1 million. Even though the FBI did an investigation, I mistakenly made him the managing partner of the opportunity. And it was just one of those things where he had, there were no restrictions on what he could do with the money, and I left the money in there, and the money should have come out, and I should have taken the money and as it went along. And so, I mean, it wasn't his money. The company should have paid me out and didn't. But that's, that is what it is. But I refuse to let that affect my next business relationship that I went into with other business partners, because if you let it affect you, if you let your past relationships, be that personal or business, impact or carry forward into that, that gives that other person way more power than they deserve. I mean, if your ex-boyfriend Bobby is out there, banging some other chick after he abused you in the relationship for a couple of years, and your new guy, Adam, is just, all into you, and you still are afraid Adam's going to do you like Bobby did, then, that gives Bobby all the power, because it's like, Bobby's, you still got your head all screwed up. So really, you need to be present and give each relationship a chance. Now, does that mean that you won't get screwed over by Adam also? And no, it doesn't. I mean, because they're two different people and it's two different situations and things like that. But for sure, I mean, it's not fair to your current relationship to allow the previous relationship to influence how you do that. So I think that that's really the kind of the biggest thing. And I've done it in business relationships and in personal relationships. I mean, I was, married once to the wrong person for 3.5 years, and dated her for 4 years before that. And I wasted 7 years of my 20s, but I didn't let it influence me. And when I met my current wife, years later, I knew it was exactly what I was looking for, and we've been together 22 years now. So if I had let that other situation kind of affect whether or not I was going to be interested in getting into a relationship, I may have missed the opportunity to meet my current wife, which would have been a shame. We have 3 great kids and 22 years of marriage, and so it's been great. Let's see. What are some more questions here? What's the biggest advantage a young entrepreneur has today that you didn't, and what's the biggest challenge we as a generation face that you didn't? Oh, that's interesting. So what a great question. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for that. Yeah. So the what you guys have now that you didn't, that we didn't, was the internet. I mean, the internet was coming up, and I was at a major university, so we had the internet, between major universities, and but if you needed to know something, you had to do research, and everything wasn't at your fingertips. I mean, if I want to know something, I can pull up my iPad and look it up, and boom, got it. Don't have to know anything, don't have to remember anything. I can find pretty much anything, and so that's one great advantage you have. It really cuts down on what you have to know. The problem is that technology, and especially social media, has really compromised everyone's ability to communicate and to relate interpersonally. So the interpersonal communications and relationships that people have suffered dramatically because of that. And that's one thing that sales is all about relationships. And you can't build those relationships virtually. You have to be able to go to dinner with somebody. You have to be able to look at them across the table. You have to hold a conversation with them. You have to put the fucking phone down, not just on vibrate, and face down on the table. Leave it in the fucking car. I mean, there is no other person that's more important at that moment than the person you're having dinner with, whether that's your girlfriend or boyfriend, or whether that's a business partner, or whether that's a potential client. And we don't have, this generation doesn't have the capacity, for the most part, to unplug and relate in any kind of meaningful way. And I think that's a horrible thing. It's horrible, and a lot of introverted people just don't develop those skills the way that they might otherwise do. So, great question. I really appreciate that. It's phenomenal. All right, for generations, we are a family of clerks. How do I move past the mindset of a 9 to 5 secure job? Well, those of you who have recently been separated from your secure 9 to 5 job know how secure it really was, which is not very. Mm, ah, love it. Thank you. So, I think the fact that you have to move beyond it is just the reality that it really isn't secure. Nothing is secure. It used to be. So my father-in-law spent 37 years of his career with one company, retired, got the special watch and the pension and things like that. Those days are over. There is no more long-term pension opportunity, except maybe for teachers and firefighters and some folks like that. But the idea of a 9 to 5 job that is going to return something on the order of security in your life is just doesn't exist. I mean, it's unfortunate. So let's see. I'll get to the request to go live here in a minute. I'm going to finish one more question, and I'm going to scroll back through the questions. Then I'll, if somebody still wants to come on, then I'll go on live with somebody on Instagram. Last question from Instagram is how to build work ethic. The great thing about the greatest generation ever, which is the people who were around in World War II, fought World War II, and things like that, they're referred to as the greatest generation ever, and they really are. I mean, they're amazing people. And here we ask people in the greatest generation ever, we ask them to go to war in Germany, thousands of miles from home, and do unspeakable things and things like that. And they did it without hesitation, without really complaining and anything else like that. And these days, we're asking people to stay home, and sit on the couch, and people can't even do that. They're out doing whatever during this coronavirus lockdown. So, that's a huge difference. I think that building that moral character and building that sense of a work ethic and things like that is really comes by example. And for me, we try to set that example with our kids. We got the kids interested in building their own business and understanding what it was like to invoice somebody and things like that, and making money, and taught them the basics, and then help the kids invest in stocks and things like that. So and that's how money is really made. Those are the kind of things that I think is really kind of teaching people early on, helping them understand that if you buy $3 worth of supplies, and you have the snow cone machine you got for your birthday, and you want to make snow cones for your friends, and you charge them $1 a piece, and you can make 33 of them, you make back $33 in an hour, and you just made 33 bucks in an hour at age 11. And you had $3 in cost. You recover your cost for the $3, and you made $30 on top of that. That's a 90% margin, and it's just an amazing thing. So it's something that I think that it's something that I think we have to teach the kids. And then when you have them put money in stocks, you put $1,000 in stocks, and it turns into 1,500 or 1,100 or whatever, and they see that when you invest in something, it grows on its own without them having to sell snow cones, then they begin to see what the real value is. And so I think you teach work ethic by example, and by laying a foundation for that. So. All right, so that's 30 minutes worth of questions. I got some great questions, and I apologize to everybody who's been chatting back and forth. I know it's a challenge here. I'm trying new formats in terms of understanding how to have some content ready to go, some things I've already thought about. So I'm going to take a minute and scroll back through the content. We got about 30 more minutes before Instagram's going to cut me off. And I want to make sure we get to some of those things after I go through some of the comments and make sure we answer some of the things that people have. I will look at going live with somebody on Instagram if they want to do that. So, but let me just see here. Well, should have taken the shares of stock. Yeah, I should have, shouldn't I? Looking at the Instagram comments now. Nice perspective. That's surprising. Lots of rich guys have horrible personal lives. No, I have a great personal life. That's I really it's been one of the reasons that I attribute that. And so it's funny too because somebody asked, well, if you and your wife ever get divorced and you don't have a prenup, she'll end up with half of everything. I figure she earned it. I mean, I wouldn't have been nearly as successful without her. So if she wants to leave someday and take half of everything, it's hers. So, hi, Gordon. Been following you on Quora. Always loved your work. Thank you very much. My mom showed up. Do you think a boon of hemp industries? Do you think it's a perfect resort for countries in the current crisis? No, I think hemp industries are going to get crushed like everything else. Um, Resort by legalizing it. No, I don't think so. Don't think that's going to happen. You mentioned you wouldn't want your kids to be entrepreneurs, right? Yeah, I mean, I taught my kids how to be entrepreneurs so that they would know how money is made and how wealth is built. And we help them make their first companies or build their first actual, make sales and things like that, and how to invest in stocks and things like that too. But honestly, I don't, I do not recommend for anybody to ever be an entrepreneur, actually. So, it's lawyers' kids become lawyers, doctors' kids become doctors, entrepreneurs' kids become entrepreneurs, and I mean, I've had a great time. I've made lots of money along the way. It's been full of ups and downs, and that cycle of up and down is pretty emotionally hard. I love my kids too much to recommend that they be entrepreneurs. I mean, that means that my daughter-in-law and my grandchildren and things like that would have to go through some of those cycles, and I'm not all about it. So, hey, Gordon, how do you think is a good business to get into for the long term? I don't know. I think well, we're seeing that anything in healthcare and things like that has been an amazing opportunity these days. So, mm, I think anything in healthcare or technology is always going to be good. Um, do I have to sacrifice a lot for success? Typically, yes. So I think almost everybody sacrifices something for success. I mean, I've sacrificed time with the kids. It really wasn't until my third son was born in 2006. I missed pretty much 6 years of my kids' lives when they were in their early years. And my oldest son was 6 when I finally spent more time at home, but I missed out on a lot of the same great times that I got a chance to enjoy with my with my youngest son. I've been accepted for a PhD program in AI, one of the best units in Europe. Do you think I can start a company after my PhD? Afraid I'll get too much into research and put my biz goals aside. Congratulations, first of all, on the PhD program in AI. I think that's a great, industry vertical to get into. I think it's going to be a long time play. I think AI is going to be viable for the next 20 to 30 years in different capacities. And yeah, might you be given some great offer to stay and do some research and put your business goals on hold? Yeah, but if the university had treated me better, I would have stayed. I mean, I had built 3 great labs and I was doing some amazing stuff, but I wasn't getting any respect, and I also wasn't making an enormous amount of money. But For me, I was like, fuck this. If it wasn't about the money; it was about the respect. And it for me, I was perfectly happy to stay at the university and do what I was doing if I was being supported properly, but they weren't. So. Any differences in Los Angeles and New York business wise? Yeah, I mean, New York and Los Angeles are completely different animals. It's like night and day. I love New York, and I will say I'm not a huge fan of LA. Probably because I'm not a bleach blonde, fake tits kind of guy. So, I just think that it's all the Hollywood assholes out there. I just really don't enjoy all that much, but completely different environment. And LA is completely different than San Francisco as well. So completely different culture, completely different uh, type of people live there and things like that. So, all right, let's see here. Thanks for your insights on hemp. My question was, for the long term, 2 years, do you see growth in the hemp industry? No, I don't. I mean, I don't think you can't look at a 2 year segment of something and determine whether or not that's, I don't look at 2 years. I look at, is it, because you never get that 2 years of your life back. So it's not a matter of, it could be a great investment over the next 2 years, but if that 2 years would have been better spent on something that you're going to be able to do for the next 20 years, then I would rather you find the thing that's going to work out for you long term. Hey, Gordon, my school came out with a 4+1 program with a year BS in computer science and a 1 year's master's in data science. I think I might go for it. Any thoughts? Yeah, so 4+1 is a great attractor, especially for masters in something. I would go for it. I really would. The masters is incredibly useful if you are able to position yourself with like a U.S. company with a security clearance. You're making 125 to 150,000 a year in those situations. So I think you're going to be just fine. As an entrepreneur, do I have to be good in soft skills or technical skills? Yeah, you need both. And if you go to my YouTube live, we talk about the various skills that you have to have as an entrepreneur. I put that in, though I think it was the April 20th video, I believe, which was you have to have good sales skills. You have to have good technical skills. And we talk in depth about that. And you also have to be good at what I call air traffic control, which is helping to manage all the different components of everything. So all of those are important. Congrats on the kids. What's your approach when it comes to their online and offline time? I put no restrictions on them. They can, if you try to, regulate or stipulate something or lock them out of certain content, the world, this stuff is out there. So, they can surf to any site, they want. They can surf all day and all night if they want. I'm not regulating what they do. And that's done on purpose. I'm not raising kids, I'm raising, future adults. And the whole idea here is that you have to come up with your own limits and your own sense of right and wrong and your own sense of judgment. And I am not going to be there, as the sort of nanny state police to be able to do that. So let me finish the questions here, or let me finish the comments, and then I'll entertain some of the guys that want to come on live. Let's see. Is the tourism industry ever going to recover? Some of it will. If you're a cruise line, I don't think you're ever going to recover. I will never go on a cruise. Should I completely give up on creating a hemp business? Oh, for God's sake, forget the fucking hemp thing, man. God damn. I'm done with the hemp industry question, all right? I'm not the guy to ask about industrial hemp. I think that before the crisis, it was marginal. I think after the crisis, it's irrelevant. So, I'm a young entrepreneur. Any advice on how to make myself more credible as people tend to look at my age rather than my accomplishments? Yeah, so, it's interesting. When I first started out and started circulating based on our website and things like that, everybody thought I was older. I mean, I was in my early 30s and I was doing stuff that usually, guys in their early 40s was doing. And but we had a really good website. It really had a lot of our good projects on it, and people just assumed that I was older until they met me. So yeah. What do you think about meditation? I learned transcendental meditation in college in the 1980s, and I practiced it off and on and still do from time to time. And I think meditation is important. So, how do you make yourself stand out when applying for a job? I really, for me, it's more about your resume and the style of it and what's in it and things like that. So, but. All right, so let me see here. That's all the questions on Instagram. And let me see what questions we have on YouTube Live. And thank you all for bearing with me. I'm sorry I have to split my attention between everybody. Let's see. How can we know the schedule of your Instagram live in the future? I'm in a different time zone, need to make sure I'm not sleeping. Can you post your Instagram lives also on YouTube? Yeah, so that's what I'm doing. I'm recording Instagram live and YouTube live at the same time. And I also will post ahead of time on Instagram when I'm actually going to go live. So that way, everybody should be able to know when it's going to be. But if you're asleep, don't worry about it. Get your sleep and catch up with me when you're awake. Two questions. Can I have $1 million, please? No, Don. And if that's a serious question, then I'll be glad to block you. Thank you. You mentioned that you are writing a book. What's the main subject of the book? Is it meant to be autobiographical or more practical book for business? Example that we can expect. When can we expect the book release? So I'm working on 3 books right now, and one which I will not release until my mom passes away is autobiographical. So I'm not gonna, as long as my stepmother and my mother are alive, I'm not gonna post, or I'm not gonna release a book that's autobiographical. But at some point I will. The second book is From the Boardroom to the Bedroom, which is both relationship and general business advice, which I'm loving the whole concept, and so it's coming together really nicely, that how the two are related. And then the third one of the 3 is the Perfect Pitch Deck book, which talks about building pitch decks that get you financed. So those are the 3 books that are currently in the works. And let's see here. All right, which books do you like the most? In terms of which books I like and recommend, my YouTube channel has 2 videos on the 40 books that you need to read. It's broken into 2 sections. I've read over 250 books, and these 40 are the ones you have to read. Advice for 19-year-old wanting to be an entrepreneur in New York City. I don't have any specific advice. New York City is full of opportunities, and so if you're going to be in New York City, it's a great place to be. If you sell a book, I'll buy it. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I'm hoping that a couple 100,000 people buy each one. But thanks for sharing. I believe in the cornerstone keys to general success that you believe are crucial. I just think it's really, a lot of people end up giving up like way too soon. I mean, I think that most people don't realize that success is just around the corner, and then they end up giving up. So the real main point is just not to give up. You provide an option to book a consultation with you for $250, and there's also pitch deck review. Could you please explain what does pitch deck review and what does it usually cover? Yeah, sure, Amir. On my website, gordonmiller.com, I'm set up where you can book a call with me if you want to talk about your anything that you want to do business-wise. And I'm happy to review your pitch deck and discuss it and talk about it. The pitch deck review is a much longer process where I detail each one of those problems on every page of the pitch deck and make detailed recommendations and things like that. It takes way longer than an hour. The total time it takes to tell you about every single thing you're doing wrong in your pitch deck is usually about 4 hours total. And it generally includes an initial call, 2 hours worth of going through your pitch deck and commenting, and another hour follow-up call to go through my comments. So, that's why it's kind of like 4 hours and $1,000 instead of the other ones. But and if you want me to redesign the pitch deck, there was another option, which I don't know if it's still on there or not, but it was like 5 or 10 grand, and I'll actually redesign it for you. But in most cases, the input that I give you is sufficient to be able to make whatever changes you need to the pitch deck. And it's been amazing because, the people that have gone through the process, it's funny too, because I get people that they'll be like, so because I told one guy that he booked a call, and it wasn't that he was unhappy. He just didn't like what I had to say, which was that I didn't think he would be successful, and then because of this, and this. And he's like, well, I think that's bullshit, and this, that, and the other. And he's like, well, can you give me some detailed feedback or whatever? So I was pissed off one night, and so I gave him detailed feedback, and it took me about another hour to give him the detailed feedback on his pitch deck, and just in comments, not like I normally do for an analysis, but I so I sent him the thing, and with a basically fuck you email along with it, and he calls me back, 6 months later, and he's like, ha, I got funded, so fuck you. And I'm like, okay, well, great. So do me a favor, send me the pitch deck that you sent them that got you funded. And he's like, well, why? I'm like, well, did you make all the changes that I asked you to make? He's like, well, uh, yeah. I'm like, well, no wonder you got funded. 2.5 years of searching for funding for your deal, and you didn't get any funding for 2.5 years, and then you implement every single idea that I told you, and 6 months later you got funded. So, you can tell me to go fuck myself if you want, but in reality, I still got you funded. And you're welcome very much. So it's just one of those kind of funny things. And I've had guys that I told they had no chance of being successful and things like that. And I've had guys come back to me and say, I struggled for it with like a year and a half, and they come back to me and like, man, I wish I had taken your advice. God, it cost me my marriage. It cost me everything. I spent all my savings. I can't. I just wanted this to work so bad. And I'm like, man, I hate that. I mean, I hate that it cost you your life savings, and it cost you your job, and it cost you your wife and everything else. Man, I tried to tell you. I mean, and then I've had guys that, get all upset with me, and they're like, well, God damn it, I'm going to be successful anyway. I'm like, okay. And, they call me back a year later, and they're like, yeah, I made it. And I'm like, that's great. And then, people that are intellectually honest about it, they're like, you know what? I really am glad I booked that call because, you really pissed me off. And I'm like, okay, well, good. I'm glad. And he goes, you know what, though? It was that I was so pissed at you. I wanted to prove that you were wrong, that it gave me the motivation to get out there and get it done and to prove that you were wrong. And I'm like, hey, man, I'll take it. A win is a win. Put something in the win column, and I'm happy. If it took me pissing you off to be that's what drives you to success, then it's the best $250 you ever spent. So, I'm glad. I really am. And you can book through Instagram. On the booking link in Instagram, or you can book at gordonmiller.com. But I'm happy to help you guys. This is what I enjoy doing. I love working with new entrepreneurs, and I'm loving it. So let me see what else we got here in terms of questions. I'm running out of time. Let's see. What would I prepare besides the pitch text? Effective information details. So Amir, it depends. I mean, typically, in terms of pitch decks, it would be, whatever it is that, and I have 2 videos on the perfect pitch decks on my YouTube. If you take a look at the pitch deck videos, it'll tell you what you should have in your pitch deck examples. And I wouldn't do, I would at least take a shot at the text and things like that. One more question. Understand that that the price for a consultation exists to eliminate time wasted with idiots. But could you maybe lower the price and add an option for 30 minutes? No, unfortunately, the prices are kind of what they are. It's not intended to create an artificial barrier. It's just, unfortunately, in the middle of all this, mm-mm, it's the time, it's the cost of my time as well, because I could be working on stuff where I could make 100 times more anyway, doing something else. So, what life lessons have you learned from your father? Well, there's a video on my mentorship series where I thank 7 or 8 of my, or like almost a dozen mentors over 7 or 8 videos about all of what I learned from them. and things like that. So the first video in that series is about my father, and it contains all of that information. So let's see, what do I think of meditation? I answered that on the other one. Been meditating since college. We have a great finance technology group on WhatsApp or Quora. If you think to join, that's okay. Unfortunately, I just don't have time for most of that stuff. I appreciate the invite, though. What do you see as the biggest things changing after COVID-19? Well, unfortunately, a lot of businesses that used to exist are not going to be there anymore. So, offer data science and analytics course in Ireland for September intake. Is it a good time to go up, or should we postpone for next year? I think we're going to see an increase of cases worldwide in September, so I don't necessarily think that I would plan anything for September. Um, do I have a daily routine? Yeah, so I have a Quora answer that talks about the routine, and I have about 8 minutes left, so I'll save my daily routine for some other stuff. But damn, this YouTube live is dope. It's amazing to watch you. So cool. Influential person answering my questions from Europe. Thank you. Yeah, Amir, no problem, brother. I mean, I appreciate the opportunity. Good luck with the pitch deck, and let me know. So, how's the tech scene in Washington D.C.? It's the tech scene in Washington D.C. is geared around the government, and which is fine if that's kind of where you want to be. But I'm not a huge government contracting fan anymore. So, but how was your experience in the 2008 recession? So the 2008 recession was interesting because I was actually working on an opportunity with CVS and Caremark. And so it kept us going through the 0809 recession. I actually made millions. It was crazy. So, greetings from the Republic of Georgia. How grave will the impact of COVID-19 on emerging startups? Hey, George, I still am grateful I didn't actually make it for that entrepreneurial roundtable in Georgia. I understand the guy they hired to replace me ended up driving off a cliff in the mountains, so that was still pretty scary. But I think it's going to be a huge impact on on emerging countries. I think Eastern Europe is gonna be devastated by some of this stuff. So, do you think college alters the natural talent and is only good for people with good analytical ability? I don't think it's analytical ability has much to do with it. I think that college is only what you make of it. I mean, if you do a lot of really great things with the time and the opportunity, then I think you can really see some great benefits out of college. If you don't, then I think it's a complete waste of money and time. So, but anyway, I'm going to go back over here. I've got literally about 8 minutes left before Instagram is going to cut off. So let me reach back to some of these Instagram questions. Um, let's see. Um, let's see. Sorry for bothering you too much, but thanks for the insights. Nah, it's all right. I don't mind. Uh, is that a so? I got a question about the watch. So we're doing a project with factories in China on different watches. I'm a watch guy, and I've wanted to put together a series of really good homage watches that really are good representations of the style of popular watches. And so we've been trying the different qualities out and things like this. This is similar design to the Rolex Daytona Panda, model. But I mean, this one it's a quartz driven movement, which I didn't realize. I usually pick all mechanical movements, but it was $69 or something like that. So and it's great. It keeps great time. Looks great. So I'm really impressed with some of these, and so. Why do I hate real estate? No live ones today. What do you mean? Well, it's because I'm running out of time, I know. So sorry about that. I mean, I have a lot of content to cover, and so I'm sorry that I can't bring on anybody live on Instagram. The so Why do I hate real estate? And I've done videos about why I hate real estate, and you can check out my YouTube. Mm. So, well, hang on just a second. If you want to go live, we'll finish out with going live here for a second. So hang on just a second, all right? But Real estate requires it's way too capital intensive. And if you want, if you want to see just how what a bad deal real estate is, then just ask anybody holding lots of real estate right now. If it's real estate that they're not living in, and whoever it is that isn't paying their mortgage, then they're not really making anything right now. And so it is a horrible. It ties up massive amounts of capital, has massive holding costs, and it is just not. It is, and this pandemic is proving that I was right in terms of why it's such a horrible investment. So, all right, I got like 4 minutes. So if somebody wants to go live on Instagram, come on and say hi, and just make the request, and I'll bring somebody on. And for those of you on YouTube Live, there is no limit. So once Instagram Live cuts off, then I'll go ahead and continue with you guys. So I'll get to your questions here in a minute. So Srinatha, if you want to go live, you have like 3 minutes left, man. And that's oh well, going once. Well, yeah, already requested, but oh, okay, got it. All right, going live on Instagram Live. Hey, how are you doing?
Hi, Mr. Merrill. Can you hear me fine?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. First of all, big fan through Quora. I grew up reading a lot of your answers, and that shaped the way I looked at the world. So, for the sake of time, I won't go any longer with that. But my biggest question, I've been entrepreneurial all my life. I turned 20 years old 2 days ago. I started my first business when I was 14. And my biggest doubt when it comes to managing whatever money that I make is, do I try every single crazy idea I can and deploy capital and do the experimentation, or do I invest it into things like stocks and think about, I don't want to lose out on the compound interest effect over time. So I really don't know how to think about money.
Well, I think that the example that I've given before is that's worked out really well for most people. Is if you put $1,000 a month away in an index fund of the Dow or the S&P 500 in the U.S. market, and just leave it alone, and then if you can do whatever you want with the rest of the money. And I know different businesses have different income profiles, and culturally, wherever you are, whatever part of the world, you may not have an extra thousand in addition to something else to invest in your own business or things like that. But I think the most important thing that I learned is that I really think that no matter what you do, and I've been the biggest fan of I reinvested in my business and things like that over the years, and that's great. But I did so at the expense of also having a stable investment portfolio in some more traditional fashions. And it's great when it works and pays off, but I don't see any reason why not to do both. I mean, take an amount of money, 500 or 1,000 a month, and put it away in an index fund and let the stocks continue to grow. If you do that when you're 20 for 40 years, by the time you turn 60, or if you do it when you're 25, by the time you're 65, then you'll have enough to retire on and not have to worry about working no matter what. So if you grow your business into some multi-million dollar business, you won't need the money. And it's always nice to have an extra 800,000 to 1.6 million, but you won't need it, or you might need it. So it just depends. So I would do both.
Okay. Do you have time for one other question, or are we running late?
No, I have as much time as YouTube will allow, or as I have 2 minutes remaining. So go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So my second question was, the business that I'm in right now, it's a services business, and I know you have experience in that as well,
Yep.
with G3. And this may be a personal opinion, but I don't really like services businesses, right? They're really hard to scale. It's very linear,
Yep.
right? There's no real exponential effect of growth, and I think that's problematic. And since I'm young, I can make the right interventions, right? So, but I've had with services in different industries before, and I'm 20. Do you think I should find somebody to go work under for a couple of years? Do I find another industry? I really don't know what to do.
Yeah, so I think those are excellent questions, and so there are a couple things in there. So I've got a minute left. I hate service businesses, and I've been in a service business for the last 27 years of my own business. My father's company was a service business for several years of his career that I was running his international global logistics and shipping and receiving and everything. I hated it, and so I also think that most people in their 20s need at least 5 years of experience working for somebody else. It helps you avoid other mistakes and also have kind of a different perspective on your own opportunities. I think it allows you to spot potential pitfalls as well as keep you from making really serious mistakes at certain times. So I think it's really critical to work for somebody else and take that knowledge and reinvest it back into your own business. And service businesses scale linearly, not exponentially. You're exactly right. And for that reason, that's why recurring revenue models are what I'm focused on now. I wish I hadn't wasted 30 years in the services industry.
Okay, I think that's about it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. So thank you very much to everybody. Instagram is now done. Can focus on the folks here on YouTube for a little extra time here. Let's see. Thanks for the session. Any criticism towards the American education system? Is the $1,000 a month after you've maxed out your 401k, or does the 401k count towards the $1,000 a month? So yeah, it would be a minimum of $1,000 a month. The 401k is the type of vehicle you would do that in. If you have a regular IRA or a Roth IRA, you can invest in the index funds of the Dow and S&P 500 inside that. I wouldn't be picking any kind of real exotic stock picks or any kind of, don't think you're going to, outsmart the market. Even the guys that do this for a living, 70 to 78% of the people that pick stocks for a living and charge you a commission haven't done as well as the S&P 500 and the Dow index funds. So don't make it overly complicated. Go with the solid win. So what's my favorite index fund? It doesn't matter. I mean, I think they're all pretty much the same. You're looking for a no-load mutual fund in an index fund of the S&P 500 or the Dow. Left Instagram, joined back on YouTube. All right. Well, thanks. I appreciate that. So let you know when it's a great live. So thanks. I appreciate that. No, I mean, I appreciate you guys following me. Instagram has an easy ability for me to post the times when I'm going live. And do I play online games? I used to. I used to be a huge GTA 5 fan. It was always great to go, fuck some shit up and kill a whole bunch of people on some murderous rampage just to keep my sanity sometimes. But, I don't have time these days. I gave my Alienware Aurora R3 to my oldest son, and we built computers for my middle son and my youngest son from custom components. And they're amazing machines, and they do, and all for less than $1,000. It was great, and a great experience to build both machines. But my Aurora R3 was something else. I mean, it was an amazing machine. But anyway, so I appreciate it, guys. I really do. It's 6 o'clock here, and I got a little bit of a late start, but the American education system. I'll finish off by saying that I think that the American education system is pretty much doomed after this. I don't think they're going to have a leg to stand on in terms of trying to trying to convince people that $100,000 is worth spending just to get a degree when you can sit home and get your degree from just about any other place other than where you picked to go to, because now you can't take it. You're not on campus and you're not taking advantage of those. I think that we're finding out just how bad some of the instructors are at instructing when they're having to instruct over remote instruction stuff. So it's something. What do you think about personal brands? Will they be visiting? Will they be visiting card in the future? I don't know what that means. Not sketchy guy that sells course, but otherwise. Well, I think personal brands are important. I mean, I've been working on my personal brand and sharing it with people. So, that's, I think everybody, whether they like it or not, everybody is all about the personal brand. So your personal brand matters. And so does mine. And anyway, hey, look, guys, I enjoy these. I love it. I am going to continue to post the times I'm going live on Instagram and continue to take questions. And I'm going to post the questions that I'm going to take. That worked out great. I really enjoyed that. The first half an hour was answering questions that were submitted ahead of time. The rest of them, we'll answer while people are in the actual in the sessions, and we'll try to get people on it as well, and let people get a chance to say hi and things like that. So I'm not sure how in the world we do that with YouTube. I don't know if somebody can join me on YouTube or not. So, the schedule for YouTube itself will be the same as my Instagram live sessions. So Fabio, whenever I post that I'm going to go on Instagram live, I'll also be going on YouTube live as well. But if you follow me on Instagram, then you'll be able to know when I'm going to go live on YouTube. All right. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. It's dinner time, and appreciate it. You guys have a great night.